Hello, welcome to another Gundam Operation 2 video. That is the new suit, the Dezpada. And yeah, I potentially have 3 matches here for you. One is going to be on Arctic Base, on raiding. Second match is going to be in Supply Depot. And we might potentially have a third one depending on how long I talk for. And that's going to be on Abandoned City. I believe that one might be raiding as well. But yeah, the Dezpada. This is another SD Gundam original unit. This comes from the same series as the Sisquidi. And I believe it's the brother unit to that unit, and they're supposed to work together, but obviously Sisquidi went to go join the anti-Earth Union and all that good stuff, right? And I believe your rival pilots this suit, right? And it's supposed to... I thought at first it was going to be a raid, because it looks like some kind of Sturm Gallus thing with those big old... I'm going to call them shields during this. They're not shields. They're actually weapon systems that holds all of its weapons, right? But it looks like it's going to walk up and punch people. I thought it was just like a raid at first, right? At first glance. But no, this is actually a general. And it's also at the same cost as the Sisquidi, right? So obviously, you know, hey, maybe they're meant for each other, right? And yeah, I do have some very mixed feelings on this suit. But I'll get into it when we get to it at the end here. But yeah, let's go ahead and get right to the stats. Starting off, you have 17,000 health with 15 ballistic resistance, 30 beam resistance, and 20 melee resistance. You have 29 range strength, 26 melee strength, 130 movement speed, 210 boost speed, 65 thruster gauge, and 66 turning speed. And for slots, you have 17 close, 14 mid, and 10 long range slots. Now, first thing that jumps up to me is that, well, I kind of figured this thing would already have low ballistic resistance anyway. A few suits at the higher cost will just have that. But this thing also has 20 melee resistance, which is, I don't know, for me that feels like pretty significant. Kind of, I feel like I have to build that, right? And honestly, in some situations where I don't build for that, I can get just mollywopped because of the lack of buffers on this suit. Actually, it does have one buffer, kind of cushioning skill. We'll get that, but so the 2 builds I have been doing, like I said before, there's one where I don't build for melee resistance. I actually build for beam, and then I buff up my range strength and melee strength. And then there's one, kind of a general, just survive shots and then do some more for opportunity stuff, right? And then other one is just a straight up just defense build where I go for beam and melee resistance and then a little bit more melee strength as well. And obviously for the slots they do favor more so close range stuff. You can put thruster gauges on that or anything to help out in melee. Of course, since the thing does have a mix of beam and ballistic weapons, you can put some reload parts to help out, get those weapons out faster, and potentially, get some more stun locks going, right? Because this suit does have a ton of weapons on it, which we'll get into right now. Starting off with the primary weapons, you have the Dezpada WB beam cannon, which is 1,000 damage, with 80% heat rate and 350 range. This is your basic instant stunning weapon. It is heat based, so if you do fire, you have to wait for a cooldown, and when the cooldown, if you fire immediately after the cooldown without waiting for the heat rate to get out of yellow, right, you will overheat this, so you can get 2 shots before you overheat. And yeah, it does, again, 1,000 damage. I believe it actually might be firing 2 shots. All I know is that you use it for just basic stun. You get a stun, you go for melee, all that good stuff, right? And speaking for melee, you do have the Dezpada Beam Saber, which is 2,000 damage. The downswing is similar. Actually, no, I'm pretty sure it is the Gabera Tetras and the White Riders downswing. The poking, thrusting, poke, right? The thrusting, poke, thrust. Yeah, there we go. We just call it the thrusting poke, right? So it's very precise. Be careful when you're throwing it around teammates because you do, you thrust forward. So be careful and just make sure you're on target when you hit it, and you'll be able to get some decent damage out of it. And now we're on to the secondary weapons. You do have a good amount here. You have, starting off, the Dezpada Head Vulcan Gun, which is 90 damage, 30 rounds, and 200 range. These are just basic Vulcans where, at high cost, where it takes nearly all the Vulcans to get a stun. But obviously you can combo that into as like a final weapon when you're using any of your other weapons that have stun accumulation, so you can get a stun that way. Of course, you can use it for basic Vulcan stuff like finishing off low health enemies or taking out pilots. So yeah, just Vulcans pretty much. Now on to the Dezpada Beam Saber times 2, which is 2,400 damage. The neutral swing is actually a double beam saber poke, very reminiscent of the single beam saber pokes that are very fast. Do be careful though; it does have a good amount of range, but you know, you can get tackled during that, so be careful how you're gonna poke somebody. And the downswing is actually, I'm pretty sure this has been on other suits before, but I remember it recently being on the Atlas. The Atlas having the, what is it, the double downswing? Did it have? Yeah, it had the double downswings. I had to think for a second. I think it might be gaslighting myself. But basically, you do overhead. You thrust forward, doing overhead slash downwards. Also a precise attack. Be careful when you do want to use this to combo into your first downswing. Because obviously they're both precise weapons. The second one at least hits the ground. First one you might miss, but and unfortunately, I should mention also that this suit does have melee priority 2, but also has a double melee swing, but it's not on this weapon though. Your single beam saber that has 2 melee swings. This melee does not. And it does have a longer cooldown between, you know, swapping. So if you're trying to do a downswing combo starting off with this weapon, if you double beam saber downswing into single downswing back to double saber, you might not make it because you're waiting for that cooldown to ready up. So you might want to just do single first, then double, then back to single again. And that goes for just regular kind of melee combos as well, since you have 2 swings on the single and 1 on the double. So unfortunate it has only 1 swing. I do wish it had 2, but or at least a faster cooldown on the swaps, right? But oh well, it can do some pretty good damage though. And yeah, now we're on to the Dezpada WB missile launcher, which is 250 damage per round with 12 rounds and 250 range. Now it says 12 rounds, it's kind of a lie. You actually shoot 3 at a time. So if you're shooting 3 missiles per shot, you basically have 4 shots. And it does take 3 of the 4 shots to get a stun, which is pretty fast. Because, you know, you can move while firing this, and it does fire pretty fast. Pretty good for following after stuns or just trying to initiate a stun because of the stun accumulation. Combos really well into your next weapon we'll mention here in a second, and of course, you know, if you can swap to your Vulcans, since if you manage to miss some of it. Again, pretty good stun accumulation rate. And pretty decent damage as well. I mean, 250 damage on 1 missile and you're shooting 3 at a time. You can build up a lot of damage with that, especially since it's a ballistic weapon. Yeah, that will build up. I use it quite often to finish off low health enemies. And, you know, along with just using it for basic utility stuff like stun accumulation and all that. But yeah, the next weapon here is the Dezpada WB Beam Cannon times 2, which is 400 damage per shot. With a 20% heat rate and 350 range. This is a burst fire weapon that you have to stand still for, unfortunately. But yeah, it's very reminiscent of the Ramzagok, where you had to stand still and you fire the beams one after another. It is a burst fire. You can cancel that anytime you want. Like, you can only shoot 1 and then switch to another weapon, right? But if you do the full burst, you do have a cooldown. It's a very short cooldown, and then you fire it again. You can only fire 2 more shots before it overheats. So if you're trying to think about getting another stun accumulation, or trying to get stun accumulation if you miss a few shots on your first burst, you have to make sure you hit those shots. Actually, no, you won't be able to hit those shots. If you hit the entire burst of the first shot, you will almost get a stun accumulation. So, you know, obviously you're like, oh wait, can I fire my second burst? Which you can, but you will probably overheat the weapon. So it's probably better to switch to another weapon to get a stun. But you know, just in case if you're kind of panicking, it can still work, right? If you're aiming really well. But yeah, it's pretty good for following it. You know, if you're not going to use it for stun accumulation, like I said before, you know, it can work really well after the missile launcher if you miss your chance to stun. But you can also use it just for following up after getting normal instant stuns, like with your beam cannon and whatnot. So you can get a stun, fire it with damage with this in case you can't get close for melee. And yeah, it's just very basic kind of damage build up, right? So it can work for that. Just be careful because you have to stand still to use this, and it doesn't instant stun. So. It's build stun. Next weapon here is the Dezpada WB Large Missiles, which is 1,200 damage. Why is it called Large Missile when you shoot 2 of them at a time? But yeah, it's 1,200 damage per missile with 4 rounds, which technically you only got 2 rounds, and 400 range. And yeah, this is very, very similar to the Gem 3's hip missiles, where it has that, instead of doing the arc, it just shoots forward out of your shield. Again, I'm going to keep calling the weapons system on your arm shields, so don't mind me here. Yeah, you'll shoot them out of your shields, and they will do a pretty good amount of damage. Again, 1,200 per shot per missile. You shoot 2 at a time, and they are ballistic weapons. And they actually do have a slight amount of tracking to it, very similar to the, or I should say, slow amount of tracking. Very similar to the Full Armor Gundam Type B's heavy stagger missile, right? However, the explosion radius feels pretty small on this suit. There's a few times where the enemies I've shot at, they're in the fireball, not exactly in the center where the explosion is, right? But at least in that kind of cloud, again, in the fireball, and they won't get stunned, which is like, damn, it looks like it could stun though, right? So I feel like they could have increased that a little bit more, especially since you're shooting 2. But if you do hit, it does a good amount of damage. It is another instant stun, so you do have well, actually no, I was about to say you have 2 instant stuns. You actually have 3 with this next weapon, which is the Dezpada. Oh my bad, the Psyrod. That sounds so fucking weird. Psyrod, which is 850 damage with 1 round, 250 range. This is basically your Psykamu weapon. It's a mix between the Phoenix's funnels and the Toad Shredder's tri-blades, where you'll lock onto somebody, you'll send a bunch of kind of heat wire looking weapons out, the Psy rods, They'll surround somebody, they'll go for 2 swings on them, and if they do get hit, if they're not boosting with maneuver armor, if they don't have maneuver armor, they will stun instantly. So this will count as your 3rd instant stun option here. You do have to lock on for it though, so I guess, if you really want to save that instant or not, but yeah, basically you can get a stun with your regular beam cannon, and then you can lock on, use this, perhaps get a stun lock, right? And hey, you can probably throw in your large missiles to get in a 3rd stun, right? And then the damage isn't too big on the Psy rods though. It's mostly just there for the utility of getting that stun, right? I mean, it is 150 damage per hit. It does hit twice, I believe. And it does have the unfortunate thing of if you use it too close to a wall, at least from what I experienced, it seems like if you use it really close to a wall, if it hits that wall, it'll just come back to you. It's kind of like the Phoenix's funnels, where if they send out and they hit a wall, one of them will come back to you if one of them hit a wall. Except this one, where if it surrounds somebody, it'll go through the stuff, right? And if it hits something, it'll come back to you if it's not an opponent, which feels kind of awkward. It also doesn't follow people like the Phoenix's funnels. If it does, it's very, very slight, right? And again, like I said, this is not a melee weapon, so it will not stop maneuver armor. It counts as ballistic, which is unfortunate. I wish it did count as melee to kind of help counter some raids, but maybe they're kind of worried because there's a lot of raids, or maybe some decent raids at this cost that are that have no dodge rolls, like the recently buffed BB and the Z-Zulu, right? So maybe they're kind of worried about balancing that, right? Which is understandable. And now we're on to the skills. You have Shock Absorber level 3. You have Maneuver Armor. Basically, you can absorb instant stun while you're boosting. You have a dodge roll, only 1. You have blast stabilizers, so mobile suit explosions do not heavy stagger you. You have flight control level 2, so you can boost and jump while you're falling in the air or jumping in the air. You have balancers. You have AMBAC level 2. You have force injectors level 2. You have melee combo controller, so that's 2 melee swings, but only on the single beam saber. Keep that in mind. You also have a unique skill which is called Weapon Binder Cushioning, which is where those 2 shields, aka the weapon systems that are on your arms, or 1 on each arm, right? If you get hit there, not only will you take 40% less damage, which is a pretty good chunk, if you're firing a ranged weapon at you, you will take less stun accumulation. So if a suit has to take 3 shots to stun you, it will now take more than 3, right? That's only for ranged weapons though. If somebody walks in melee, you're just going to get stunned, normally, right? And, however, though, if they do hit you in the shield, you will take 40% less damage, though. So, that does work for melee, not just range. And, yeah, that will lead right into the pros and cons. I'm going to go ahead and start with the cons. First of all, you are a pretty sizable target. Just those shields alone, which is going to be kind of a downside on one part of this, where They do not stop instant stuns. Now, you will take 40% less damage, but if you're using one of your standstill weapons and you get shot in where the shields are, you will be instantly stunned. I mean, you'll take less damage, you'll get stunned anyway, which can lead to disastrous situations where maybe you'll get followed up on and you'll take a huge chunk of damage to yourself, right, by the enemy team. Which, if you guys remember my match video, I remarked that the suit feels a little bit flimsy, which kind of leads into maybe a con here where the weapon cushioning skill, your shields on your arms, I feel like they really didn't try to position those in a way that would really help out the suit. First of all, when you're walking around, they're just sticking straight out of your arms. They're not even like trying to block anything. I guess your arm and your upper body, right? Technically speaking. But if you're familiar with how a lot of people play this game, they do not aim for the upper body most of the time. They will aim for your legs just straight up. And this thing does not protect your legs. It does not reach that low. In fact, it protects more so, like your upper body more so than your legs. And the thing is, this suit doesn't have buffers besides the cushionings, right? So if you get hit in the legs and then you start getting comboed, because again, those shields don't reach very very well down past your waist, right? It can be really easy to bypass this shield, and you can die very, very fast. Which is a bit of a shame because it really would have made this suit really well if they did something to kind of make that better. One of the examples is that maybe if you're using certain weapons that you can actually hold out, or at least kind of position the shields a little bit to where it kind of helps with that, right? Or at least protect your front area, right? A little bit better. Because, when you hold up your weapons that you stand still for, you just hold your shields just straight forward, and your whole just torso is just open. Your whole torso to your waist down, right? It's just open to get stunned. I mean, even if you get hit in the shield, you get stunned anyway by an instant stun, which is a bit of a shame. So I do wish maybe if the devs could give this some kind of buff, at least kind of change the positioning on those how your arm is when you're holding certain weapons, so that actually kind of like how the Hama, I guess it's kind of a cheat because it is a shield weapon, where the Hama just holds a shield out in front of it where it charges its weapons, right? Something like that, where if you have your melee out, maybe you can kind of have the arm protecting you. Again, it just feels really flimsy because people can bypass that, and if you got more than one person shooting you, you can almost just die straight up. And it sucks because a lot of your a good chunk of your weapons, I should say, you have to stand still for, which I guess is another downside for the suit. You do have a instant stun, which is nice, but or basic instant stun where you can walk and all that. But I do wish the beam cannon ×2 you can move while using. It feels very antiquated. We have to stand still and fire those while you're still very vulnerable to getting hit. Getting stunned. I wish you could move while using those. That way, if you're trying to get a stun accumulation using your missile launcher into your beam cannon. You can move while doing that and go straight into your melee without having to wait that little moment where you have to stop after firing and then you go into your melee, right? That kind of awkward area. I know the devs recognize this as a thing because oftentimes when a suit has a standstill to fire weapon, they buff that kind of area, right? So, yeah, it doesn't help. Again, like I said, the first downside is you are a pretty sizable suit, pretty easy to hit. You have to make sure you use that maneuver armor and dodge roll as much as it will help you. Because if you don't, again, people can bypass your shields really easily and just fuck you up. But yeah, that'll go straight into the pros now. Pros are that you do have plenty of weapons here. You have really good weapons of instant stun and stun accumulations. You do have double melees. You have both ballistic and beam weaponry. You do have a shield weapon a skill that does kind of protect you from damage if you get hit there. The weapon cushioning. So there are some good upsides of this. Again, you have a very nice, you have 3 potential instant stuns, and one of them is ballistic. You have really good stun accumulation with the missiles into the beam cannon, or even your Vulcans if you wanted to. You have very basic skills but they can get the job done if you use it correctly. You know, maneuver armor is pretty nice to have for a general, and again, a dodge roll. Flight control, so you can boost while you're in the air, all that good stuff. Works just fine. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the suit. And I gotta say, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. Now, it does, whenever you do get the ball rolling with the suit, it can feel pretty great to play. However, I feel it's a little bit awkward to try and just kind of maneuver between your weapons, like the standstill weapons, into getting into your melee and all that good stuff. It just feels a little bit awkward. The large missiles I can be fine with being a standstill weapon, but I feel like like I said earlier, the beam cannon ×2, I feel like you should be able to move while using those. It just feels a little bit awkward to try and jump into other weapons or jumping into those weapons. And again, the weapon binder cushioning, the shields, as I like to call them, they almost feel useless depending on the kind of people I'm fighting. Like if I'm fighting lower ranking players or lower rating players that kind of just aim to get a stun, obviously they're going to aim for like a general just torso area, like wide surface area, right? And the shield would work just fine for that. But if I'm fighting like more experienced players, they're easily just going to bypass the shields and just go straight for the legs. And again, you don't have any buffers for that. You just have to rely on having a lot of resistances. And if you guys remember in that testing video or the match video, again, it just felt very, very weird. Just getting it felt, I felt very flimsy using it. But that could just, these kind of things could just be me playing the suit, Like I said, if you get the ball rolling, you do really well with this. I did do really well for that match video I did post. So I imagine maybe it's just me learning it. I'm just having an issue learning the way the suit to play. God damn, I'm really mincing my words here. I'm having an issue learning its play style, I guess, right? So maybe there's people out there that don't have that issue, they don't have that issue and they're doing just fine using the suit, which, good on them, right? So I guess, if I could recommend this, if you look at the suit, if you watch some other videos of it, if it looks like something that's appealing to you, I'd say go ahead and roll for it. If you missed out on the Sisquidi, you could at least support the Sisquidi, right? But at the same time, they did release other token stuff for, like, you can spend your tokens on getting the overtuned weapons or the Advanced Hazel level 2, which honestly, that's a tough choice. Honestly, I would go for the Advanced Hazel level 2. Yeah, of course, I'm pretty sure you get a chance to get the level 1 as well. The Advanced Hazel is a really damn good support, one of the best supports. So honestly, if I had to choose, like if I was a new person coming in, if I had to choose between the Advanced Hazel or the Dezpada, I would go for the Advanced Hazel. For me recommending it to newer players, right? But yeah, again, if you think you like the Dezpada, go ahead and roll for it. For me, again, it's a very mixed bag. I feel like I can do better with other generals that have multi-stuns. The Stark Jagan is a really devastating, almost said support, devastating general at this cost. You also have stuff like the Haikushiki Kai mass production type. That suit has added benefits like having the damage over time, fire bazookas, right? So not only do you get that damage, initial big damage stun, big damage along with the stun, it also does damage over time, and you had the beam rifle and the follow-up weapons as well, and the sliding melee as well. So you almost kind of have a Dezpada right there, but obviously you don't have that special skill and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's up to y'all. For me, I couldn't recommend it for personally. Again, it felt very mixed bag. I feel like I can do a lot better with other generals at 550. But yeah, it's going to be in this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like. Subscribe if you want. I'd really appreciate it. And, type up in the comment section how you feel about the Despacito. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Man, that's going to be a really tiring joke to hear in the coming future. But, again, I don't hate it, but I don't really like it either. It's, I heard people call it mid. Yeah, very, very mid. You can probably do really well with it, but I've had very few chances to do really, extremely well with it, right? Very few chances. So I'll probably just pick another general. Or, I can pick the Sisquidi since that's at 552, but... yeah, that'll be it, and I will see you guys later. Bye.
winning that. A little more practice and we'll be unstoppable.